Hey everybody, this video is going to go over our sixth and final sample narrative essay that I've had you read for class. This essay was Deep Green Eyes, and one thing to notice about it right away is that it is actually a student sample essay. So the other 5 essays that I've asked you to read, the Brian Eden ones, Fear the Laundry, A Brief and Unpleasant Run-In, Back at the Ranch, Black Men in Public Space, Words of My Youth, they were all written by professional writers. This one, though, is a student. So I think it's really important to see what other composition students can produce. This student, I had her a few years ago, and I just thought it was a really good example that I think people will get something from, and that she did a really good job on. So I'm going to talk about the rhetorical situation, just like I have with the other essays, and then I'll get into some of the things that I thought were really effective with this essay and things that I hope that you might take into consideration when you're working on yours. So the first thing is the topic for this essay. What is the specific topic? Well, she is sharing with us an experience of being a caregiver for a young autistic boy, and how that experience changed her life and helped shape her future, right? What is, her angle here? What makes it special or unique, fresh, and different? What's interesting is that she gives us this introduction, right, where she provides some background information and some context, but then she frames the actual story as a letter to the boy's mother, which I think was kind of interesting. It was different. It was a cool technique to experiment with. I admit it would have been even better if she had come back to that letter idea at the end of the essay. She gets into, Dear Stephanie, and then starts sharing the actual moments that she had with Evan. But then she doesn't come back and close the letter, if you will. I think if she had done that, would have made it even better. If she had another chance at another round of revision, that's definitely something that I would have asked her to work on. But it's still, I think, a pretty good example of a student essay as it is. But that's just, kind of a cool thing that she, tried. And I think it was effective, could have been better. But just something to think about. Not that I'm saying you guys have to frame your stories as letters, but just to experiment with different ways of getting us into the story, right? Another thing that makes this essay fresh is how she shares her thoughts and her emotions. One of the points of the rhetorical situation that we talk about is voice and tone. And what's interesting is I think that component actually adds to her angle as well. I think it's a very genuine and heartfelt voice and tone. And I think that adds, it just adds a layer of realism to the essay. We can relate to it, and it just seems very, very real and very honest. Her purpose with this, I think, what she tends to really focus on when she's describing her moments with Evan is how difficult it was. It was not easy for her. She really didn't know what she was doing at first, but she persisted, So I think that part of what she's trying to say is, it was a difficult situation, but she overcame those obstacles, and she didn't just overcome them, but in the process of overcoming them, she realized that that's what she wanted to do with her life. So this thing that seemed impossible, not only did she conquer it, but it actually became her passion. So I think that's definitely one thing that she wants us to get from this, is that, you never know what difficult situations might lead to something really fantastic. I think that there's probably also a portion of the essay, part of her that wanted us to feel compassion for those with special needs. I don't think that was her primary purpose, but I do think that it was something that she was also hoping that we would walk away with. Um, Her audience, I think the people that she thought would be interested in this story, anyone who has been through those difficult situations and not only come out successful, but come out with a very crystal clear vision for yourself. I think, anyone who has ever cared for special needs children, um, or has, has them in their family, or friends, just a loved one, you would possibly attract those audience members with this story. Anyone who, I think, it doesn't even have to be a special needs child, actually. I think anyone who has had a child in their life that they have really loved and then had to part ways with for one way, one reason or another. They moved, you moved, whatever the case may be. So I think that she's got a layered audience as well. But I think most people would understand what she's trying to accomplish with the essay. Her opening, it's a bit mysterious at first. I had to put in my 2-week notice. We were moving, and no matter how much I wanted to stay, I could not. But it wasn't leaving that hurt me. I wanted his mother to know what her son had done for me. This boy changed my life. She's making these statements that are both vague and specific at the same time. And so it does make you kind of wonder at first, like, okay, like, it's a boy, but she's putting in her 2-week notice. This person has had a profound effect on her, obviously. So what exactly is this situation? Who is this person, and what has happened that, caused this little boy to change her life? So she lets us know pretty quickly what, at least in a general sense, what the story is going to be about. And then towards the end of that first paragraph, she says, he taught me patience, compassion, discipline, understanding, and a different kind of unrelenting love. Okay, well, now we know exactly what this is about. And she even clues us into the fact that that he's not a neurotypical child. Evan cannot understand quite like the average 4-year-old, though he cannot speak clearly or pay attention well. So we get that sense, we don't find out that it's autism specifically until a little later in the story, but she does at least let us know that we are dealing with a situation, something that she's experienced, where caring for a very young child who is not necessarily your typical 4-year-old has changed her life. So we know, as much as we need to know right in that first paragraph. So she gives us a little more background information. Her details kind of emerge with a lot of precision as she narrates the story. So every time she's talking about an event, her attention to detail is not so much sensory as it is almost kinetic, almost about movement, about, she's turning her head, or, he's doing this. She is very precise in her account of the characters, if you will. So that's kind of interesting. Again, the structure, she begins with that traditional opening. She grabs our attention. She provides us with the context. She alludes to her controlling idea, her purpose. The second paragraph kind of continues with the context, gives a little more background information. The third paragraph of the essay is just a very brief paragraph, and that is what starts to transition us from those 2 introductory paragraphs with the context and background info, and starts to move us into the actual story. And then in the 4th paragraph, she starts the letter. So she starts the letter. The 5th paragraph then is where she starts into the story and telling us about the first time she met Evan. The 6th paragraph, she goes into more about that first meeting, and this is when Mom leaves. So it's like she sets us up. She meets Evan in the 5th paragraph, and then in the 6th paragraph, she's on her own with Evan. And then The seventh paragraph, it's really cool. She just says months passed, and she goes into the next thing that she wants to talk about. She just moves us right through that period of time that isn't significant to the story she wants to tell. You know, her whole time with Evan was important for sure, but she doesn't need to chronicle every single day she spent with him. You know, she focused on the first time she met him, and then when his mom leaves and she's on her own with him, and then she just very casually and effortlessly moves us to the next moment in time that she wants to focus on. Months passed, and here we are. So pay attention to that, because you will want to move us through time, whether it's hours, days, weeks, months, or years. You know, there will be gaps that you don't want to focus on because nothing significant was happening in that time period. So she moves us to the next event in that seventh paragraph, months passed, and then she talks about, you know, the struggle that she was having with him. And then in the eighth paragraph, she says 6 months in, you know, so she has moved us from the first meeting to 6 months into her taking care of him in like 2 paragraphs, right? So she moves us very quickly to where she needs us to be. And then that eighth paragraph, you know, 6 months into her time with Evan, that's when the climax happens. You know, everything that, all these struggles that she's been going through, everything she's been sharing with us, you know, and her learning more about Evan and learning how to help him best, it reaches that climax when he grabs her face and really looks into her eyes. You know, it's again, I keep saying this, but it's genuine. Like I believe her when she writes about that moment and how impactful it was to her, how special it was. The ninth paragraph would have been nice to end the letter. There is no end to the letter. But still, it's a good framework, a very honest emotional connection. It has a clear controlling idea and purpose. So we know right from the beginning that she's telling this story about Evan, who is not your typical 4-year-old, and how caring for him or being with him changed her life. As we get into the essay, the body of the essay, that's when we learn that Evan is specifically an autistic child, that she really didn't know what she was doing when she first started caring for him, but she learned a lot along the way. And not only did she have an effect on Evan, but he had a very profound effect on her, and now that's what she wants to do with the rest of her life. So it's very clear why she chose this, you know, this time in her life to write about. So keep this in mind when you go to start working on yours. Specifically, you know, if you're not gonna go the funny route, if you want to pick something that was truly meaningful to you, make sure that you are telling the story in a way that is genuine, that we believe you, and that again, doesn't spend too much time in the moments that aren't as significant. Always keep in mind what your main point is. Why did you decide to write about this moment or this period of time in your life? Make sure that everything you include in the story is working towards fulfilling that purpose. Okay. So that's the end of our sample essays. I hope that reading through them and discussing them in the weekly discussions and watching these videos has helped in some way. I hope that you've gotten something from the essays that you can take with you as you start working on yours. If you have any questions or comments, anything you want to talk to me about with any of the essays, feel free to do so. Otherwise, after this, you will go on to do the workshop for the narrative essay. That is the next sub-tab. It's the narrative essay workshop exercise. And once you complete that, hopefully you will be all set to work on the rough draft of essay number 1. So good luck with that.